Stacy, I'm so glad that we get to do this with each other. I feel like I'm constantly learning from you and just kind of taking notes from everything that you do, and it's been really awesome over the years getting to know you better.
Oh, Manny, thank you. Well, look, I'm so happy to be here. I was honored to be asked, and I will always do anything to support everything you're doing.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
excited to have this time with you.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. Thank you folks who are tuning in now. If you can raise your hand when you sign in so I can see who you are. There's a little button on your screen that says raise your hand. Please go ahead and press that so I can see all the wonderful folks who are tuning in now. And welcome to Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations, where we're continuing our mission of civically engaging the public, but we're doing it on our computers or on our laptops or iPads or whatever devices we're using. And today I'm so honored and excited to be joined by my friend Stacy Mason, who is just this kick-ass leader in politics in the Bay Area, to talk about how to elect women during shelter in place, how to continue electing women during shelter in place. And real quick, Stacy Mason, actually, I'm going to let you introduce the organizations that you run because I think you'll do them better than I will. And that's it. Welcome, Stacy. The one thing I'll say is if you have questions for Stacy, you don't have to wait until Q&A. You can just type your little questions in or long questions into the Q&A box. And we'll do questions in about 15 minutes. All right, Stacy, hi.
Thanks again, Manny. And I'm so happy to jump right in because I have a lot that I do want to say to people and tell people about. So very quickly, I run two different organizations that do the same thing differently. We support Democratic women candidates for office, and we primarily raise money for them. At the high dollar level, one is called Electing Women Bay Area, which is a group of giving groups. We have locations in 4 places in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Sonoma, and the East Bay. And we direct funds primarily through those groups to Senate candidates and gubernatorial candidates, sometimes to House candidates. And at the lower dollar end, I run a crowdfunding platform called Women Count. And that is designed to drive big volumes of small dollar donations to these same women candidates. And at Women Count, we raise from the state ledge level all the way up to for president. And Electing Women raises for candidates for president, or raised for candidates for president as well. And both of those groups are based here. Women Count is a national effort, but they have the same mission and vision, which is to make sure that giving is intentional and informed and strategic, and so that you're doing it as part of community. I'm a DC transplant, spent most of my life and career in Washington as a political journalist, moved out here many years ago, and realized that the Bay Area is an incredible resource for progressive causes and candidates, which is really a wonderful thing. But I noticed that people were really searching for ways to make their giving strategic and intentional and informed. So that's really what we try to do through both of the different organizations. I'm a progressive. I care about Democratic majorities up and down the ballot.
Yes.
So I personally support men and women. The two organizations I run are focused on electing more women because our numbers are just so bad.
Yes, I did a call yesterday with Andrea Steele on somewhat similar topics, and she talked obviously about Emerge and all that. And I think the stat that she mentioned was, I think we had 23% of the offices that are available to be held in the United States are held by women, which is just so woefully less than it needs to be.
So just I'll scan it through the numbers again one more time because they're so remarkable. Women make up 24% of Congress, 29% of state legislatures, 18% of gubernatorial seats, and we are 51% of the population and 56% of voters. So those numbers are atrocious.
Yeah.
And it puts the US at 79th in the world in the number of women in elected office. So we have a long, long, long way to go. We obviously made some gains in 2018.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly enough.
I asked this for Andrea, and I want to ask you as well, and then I want to get into the Senate map, which is, it was disappointing to see so many incredible women on the Democratic stage and then not have any of them make it to the final round. And I guess my question to you is kind of living in this world and working in this work as you do, why do you think it is so hard seeming in the United States to elect women? Why do you think we're at that place? And then just as a sidebar, why do you think we weren't able to get a female candidate in 2020?
So I think the U.S. suffers from some major cultural issues related to women in leadership in general. It is not just politics.
Yeah.
Women make up 9% of Broadway and Hollywood producers and directors. 2 or 3% of Fortune 500 CEOs. And the numbers go on in academia. Boards. It's very typical, and it is better in many other countries. So I think we have some serious work to do culturally on how we view women in leadership and how we promote and support women in leadership. Yeah. So I'll just start with that. Okay. And then at the sort of electoral level, politically, there are just some barriers for women running for office. And when I made the switch from political journalism to working in politics, there was so much I didn't know. I didn't know that the challenge is not that women don't win. Women do win when they run for office. The problem is that women don't run.
Yeah.
They don't run primarily because they're not recruited at the same rate that men are recruited. So when you simply have a smaller pool of women running for office, you're going to have fewer gains.
Right.
There are family barriers, there are fundraising barriers, the list goes on. Right. And then I'll use this next reason to segue into the presidential race. The gender bias and the sexism on the campaign trail is still so extreme. Yeah. And it is, it just creates challenges that men don't have. Yeah. We had some amazing women running for president during this cycle. And I should just say that both Women Count and Electing Women Bay Area, we do not endorse candidates. We host women candidates. Yeah. Our strategy in the presidential election was to give our members, to give our supporters the opportunity to financially support and donate to all of these women candidates. And I'm so proud of both of the communities that we work with because people really stepped up. I mean, we did events, at Annie's with these.
Yes. And so it was powerful. The Kirsten Gillibrand events that we did in particular, I remember, were so powerful.
Yeah, it was Kamala. It was really amazing. I think that I think there's a long list of, as when we think back to 2016, Hillary did win for a long list of reasons. I think that's the same for the 4 front-running women who ran for president. I think that gender bias and sexism on the campaign trail and how the media covered these women was a huge issue. Yes. I think in certain of the campaigns, fundraising and financial challenges was a huge burden. Yeah. And I also think, and I know Andrea said this yesterday, and Kirsten Gillibrand has said this, and I think that even Kamala said this, that if you didn't start this election with really, really, really high name ID, it was very, very difficult to float to the top. Yeah. Outliers in that case, obviously Mayor Pete, but in general, with such an enormous field of candidates, it was hard when you didn't have universal name ID. Look where we are now. Yeah. Look at who the 2 remaining candidates are in this race. I mean, they were people that everybody already knew.
Right. So let's get into the inside baseball, shall we? Let's talk about the Senate because first of all, there's so many amazing women running for Senate seats. And also there is some hope people have on flipping the Senate. So I have a bunch of questions for you on this. One, Can you just actually just lay the land for me a little bit? What does the Senate map look like? Do you think it's possible for us to flip it? What are the flippable states, and who are the women that we need to be watching?
Great. Okay. Love that question. So let me just set it up first. So in terms of our work, in terms of all political work, I have a message I want people to send to people. Everybody, all of us will work our hearts out at the presidential level, obviously, because nothing is more important than us flipping the White House. And we're obviously gratified that Joe Biden has said he will name a woman nominee as vice president. We will be all over that when it finally is a full ticket.
Yes.
The United States House of Representatives. We will do everything we can to make sure we protect all of the incumbents who won in 2018 that allowed us to flip the House.
Yeah.
We have more candidates who can flip additional seats.
Yeah.
So we will focus on the House, although we are not concerned at this time about losing control of the House. Mm-hmm. We will also compete really heavily at the state legislative level, because there's a certain set of states where we need to flip those chambers in order to get control of redistricting, so that we can have a bigger voice in creating districts going forward. So that is all critical work. However, the battleground in 2020 is flipping the Senate. We are within reach of flipping the Senate. Win the White House or not, we have to have the Senate. This is what I tell people. If we win in November, we need the Senate. God forbid we don't win, we need the Senate. And we are within reach. So we currently have a 3-seat gap. We need 3 seats to tie.
Sorry, I missed that. What's the gap?
3 seats. So right now, Democrats are down by 3 seats. We have 47 Democratic senators. Okay. So we need to flip 3 seats to tie if there's a Democratic White House, because then the vice president is the tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. We need 4 for a majority. I want 5 in case we lose any incumbent Democrats, which we are all working really hard to avoid, but it could happen. 6 would be even better. Okay. And here's why it's within reach. So the first states that are, and there are 11, depending on how you look at it, there are 11 to 12 seats that we call competitive seats. And there are varying ranges of how competitive they are. Some are easier than others, but we plan to work really hard in all 11 of those states and with all 11 of those candidates. And the big message I want people to hear is that 3 or 4 of those seats are most easily flippable with male candidates. We will not flip the Senate without women. It will be women who flip the Senate. So I can just go state by state very, very quickly.
And actually, operator, while she's doing this, do you mind typing in her notes in the chat box for folks?
So the seats that look the best at the moment, what we call the toss-up seats, are first in Arizona, where Mark Kelly is looking very, very, astronaut Mark Kelly, husband of Gabby Giffords, and I know that she was just at Manny's. He is looking in pretty good shape to flip a seat in Arizona, but we need to support him and make sure that happens. Hickenlooper in Colorado, also looking strong in the polls against Cory Gardner. And again, we need to continue to support him, but he is looking fairly strong. Another very competitive race, North Carolina, and I'm looking at my notes so I get this exactly right. Cal Cunningham is running in North Carolina against an incumbent named Tom Tillis, and that seat is very, very competitive and looking like a toss-up. And then Montana is newly in play on the map with Steve Bullock's decision to run against the sitting senator, which is great news and now makes that seat more competitive. Steve Bullock has just gotten in, so that's new. And then after that, it is all the women. And the single most competitive seat is in Maine against Susan Collins, and that's the seat we want the
I
most.
want that seat so badly. I want that seat so badly. I want Susan Collins out of the Senate so badly.
Not just because of her Kavanaugh vote, but for so many other reasons. So there is a wonderful, wonderful woman named Sarah Gideon, who is the current Speaker of the Maine State House of Representatives. She's wonderful. She's the first Emerge America graduate running for the Senate, which is exciting. And we have already supported her. We will continue to support her every day up until the election. There is another woman named Theresa Greenfield. She is a small business owner. She is running against Joni Ernst. We must unseat Joni Ernst. Those two races are probably the most competitive with women nominees. After that, there is a woman in Kansas named Barbara Bollier. She is a physician, an anesthesiologist who is a current state legislature, phenomenal candidate. She is running in Kansas in an open seat. That race just keeps getting more and more competitive and upgraded as to be more likely to flip. So we have been supporting her and will continue to support her. After that, a name that everybody has heard about is Amy McGrath in Kentucky. And she is, of course, running, a veteran who's running against Mitch McConnell. We all want that seat. There's nobody who doesn't want to defeat Mitch McConnell. That race will be hard. Kentucky, Trump won in Kentucky by 30 points. So it's going to be tough, but we're going to fight for it. Another state that's going to be hard, but where we're going to fight is in Texas. MJ Hager, another woman vet, is the likely nominee. She has a runoff to get through, but we expect her to win that. And the party is fighting really hard in Texas and hopes to pick up not only House seats. She's running against an incumbent named John Cornyn, who's very, very vulnerable. So those 5 women are instrumental to flipping the Senate. Again, we can't flip the Senate without women. I like to say that, our mantra going forward for Women Count and for electing women is how to flip the Senate from home. And do you want me to talk about your slate?
Yeah, let's talk about my slate.
Okay. So this is exciting. So in addition, I should also want to add one other thing. There's a Georgia Senate race where they could have a woman nominee where she's competing in the primary. Her name is Theresa Tomlinson, and she's running, there's a primary in the race against David Perdue. That primary hasn't happened yet, but we're following that one closely as well.
Okay.
In the meantime, we're focusing on these other states. So one of the things that Women Count does is we create slates of candidates. We have created a slate special for you, Manny, called Senate Red to Blue. And it includes all the women who are running to flip Senate seats to Democratic control.
Nice.
So anybody listening, please, please, please go to womencount.org/Manny's, or you can go to womencount.org on our homepage. And if you scroll down to the slates, you'll see it's in the upper right corner. We tried to make it prominent. And consider a donation to these candidates. And here's the kicker and the bonus. We also included Manny's itself on the slate. So it's an opportunity for all the people who support you and care about you to give to these Senate women candidates and to make a donation to Manny's itself. It's automatically pre-populated at the $5 level, but you can customize it on the Women Count slate site and give bigger donations for people.
And we just posted it in the chat box for all the folks who are listening in. You can go straight to there right now and make the donations. And we're going to be sending it out to our mailing list of 16,000 people in the Bay Area also to raise some money for these women in the Senate, and also hopefully for Manny's as well. But I'm so proud of this. And I'm also, I have to just say, I'm so proud of all these kick-ass women who are running. I think it's important to hope for the best as part of like just a way of making it happen. And I've been imagining Sarah Gideon in particular in that Senate seat. We hosted a fundraiser for her. I've been imagining Amy McGrath. I know it's a tough race. And I guess my next question, Stacey, is like, okay, so the question is, would you recommend people give a little bit to each of these folks, or should people choose one or two Senate candidates that they're particularly excited about and marshal most of their time, effort, and resources into those people?
That's a great question. So, and I get this a lot. What I generally say to people is that if you have a particular favorite, or if you have a relationship with someone, if you've met someone or seen them, if you have any kind of connection to any of these states, then go for it. Do what feels good, and absolutely customize these donations and give a little bit more to places where you have stronger ties to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to be super, super strategic, there's no question that Sarah Gideon and Theresa Greenfield and probably Barbara Bollier are the most competitive, need the funding the soonest, and you could always sort of tilt a donation that way. But Amy McGrath and MJ Hager are competitive. They need to be funded. They need our support.
Yeah.
So it's going to do it that way. And you can monitor these things. You know, if you check in with the womencount.org website from time to time, and people who are interested in the giving group, that website address is electingwomenbayarea.org.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of intel on these sites about the races, and people can monitor them. But I think it's a great thing to do, to give a little bit. You can make monthly donations either through their campaigns or on the Women Count website.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say, it's so important for these women to have the early funding.
Yeah.
So I say wait and see, but I don't really mean it, because, and particularly today and tomorrow, which is the end of the first quarter, when numbers are posted and it's really important, they need money now. And as I said, women are just going to be women candidates will be disproportionately affected by this coronavirus impact on the economy and on campaigning. So we're trying to do everything we can to help them now.
So folks, if you have questions for Stacy, you can start typing them into the Q&A box. So please go ahead and start typing those in. Stacy, just a quick one, and I guess I'm setting it for a plug here, but it's an important question. We talked about this with elevating climate candidates, and Give Green is this platform to elevate climate candidates. Talk to me about why it's important to give through something like Women Count, as opposed to just giving directly from the website.
Yeah, great question. It's all about elevating voices and showcasing and spotlighting things that you think are important. So Give Green is an amazing platform that raises money for candidates who prioritize climate change and environmental progress. Women Count showcases women candidates. So we can talk all the time about how much we've raised. We've come together as a community to amplify our voices, to really show how much we care and donors care about promoting women in politics, elevating women, bringing them into leadership positions. So we are out and about all the time, being able to give voice to that. And we see these candidates a lot, and we talk to them. And what we hear over and over and over again is how incredibly important it was, particularly at the beginning of their races, but through the election, to know that people had their backs as women candidates. These are all great candidates. These women are so qualified. Their expertise and their experience is remarkable, but it matters that people know that someone had their back as a woman candidate, because if we don't focus on this and we don't do something, it's just going to get worse. I mean, the numbers for women are bad. And until we make it important, it's not going to get better. And I think that places like Women Count and Electing Women Bay Area make it important.
Amazing. I'm going to get to some folks' questions. Lisa wants to say and to know she's all in for women candidates, but she also wants to flip as many seats as. What about South Carolina? What about Tennessee? She just did a Zoom call with Harrison and Mackler. They seem to have a good chance too. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I support men too. Personally, this is just what we do, which is why at the beginning of this I talked about Mark Kelly and Hickenlooper and Cal Cunningham. South Carolina is also in play. It's considered more of a long shot. but it is, it's possible. And for people who want to fund all the races, absolutely include South Carolina.
All right, Todd wants to know which female House candidates this year need help as well, both incumbents and challengers.
So we have slates for that on the Women Count site. So please feel free to go to womencount.org and you can see all of our slates. There's House Red to Blue, there's Senate Red to Blue. We have a slate to protect the House incumbents. I would say the top ones this cycle are Lauren Underwood in Illinois. Yeah. And then in terms of flipping seats, there's some amazing women running in Texas for House seats that I would point to. We're supporting Christy Smith here in California, which I would love everybody to know about. She's running in Katie Hill's now open seat. Yeah. And needs our support because that's going to be a really tough race.
Are you seeing, and I think also I know Sharice Davids in Kansas and Xochitl Torres Small in New Mexico.
Sorry.
Okay. I know they could use some help. Are you seeing are the many women candidates that won in 2018 kind of bonding together to help each other? Because there were a lot of women that were elected in actually flip districts, and I wonder how that pipeline is being created or facilitated through all the women that won in 2018. Are you seeing that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's happening in a couple of different ways. One is regionally. So we are starting to plan events, for example, in Iowa, where Cindy Axney and Abby Finkenauer are House incumbents who both need support. So they're out traveling. Well, they won't be anymore, but doing virtual events and fundraising together. And Citizens United, which is a nonprofit that supports campaign finance reform, has just teamed up with certain House incumbents who need support, who care about that issue. So Lucy McGrath in Georgia, and she's another one who needs our support to keep her seat. Lucy McGrath and Kim Schreier from Washington State, teamed up and did some events together. So we're seeing it both by issue and also by geography. And the DCCC, of course, is incredibly effective at targeting, specific races. And look, coronavirus has changed the landscape somewhat. We just prior to had a phone call with Senators Jean Shaheen and Tina Smith, who are the only two women senators up for re-election this cycle. Mm-hmm. And we had some interesting conversations about how it's affecting not just fundraising, but campaigning in general.
Yeah. Well, this brings me to, I think, my last question. If folks have more questions, they can type them in. We have time for probably one or two more. Actually, let's just go to Nina's question. Stacy, are you seeing any early impact of COVID-19 on the election? Outside of the obvious challenges of no travel, I know that it will change daily, but do you have any predictions? Great question, Nina.
Well, it's going to change it's going to change everything about campaigning. I think just to begin with, it's going to change the fundraising landscape, obviously, because it's going to be so much harder for these candidates to raise money. They're not going to be able to travel. With the impact on the economy, it's obviously going to affect fundraising. So that's something that all of us who do this work are trying to figure out and trying to support them as much as we can now. But it's also going to change the conversations, obviously. And what we heard just now from Senators Shaheen and Smith is they want to hear from their constituents about what they're going through and talk to them about the ways in which they are trying to help them in Washington.
Yeah.
And change everything.
My last question is just about, I was asked to ask this question. And I think it's, it's a toughie, but 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. And I think hearing that, a lot of people felt frustrated about representation mattering, and also what seems to be an issue with women supporting women. It seems like men have no problem supporting other men and getting them into higher office. But the question, I was asked to ask the question about how do you get women to get more comfortable supporting women in positions of power in politics? And do you think that's an issue?
It's a great question and a complicated one, and there's certainly no easy or fast answer. We do know, though, that women do not necessarily support women at any higher rates or in higher numbers than they support men. What I would say is that this is a fight and a battle for everybody. We are not looking for only women to be supporting women. We obviously want women to support women, but we want men to support women as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many reasons why the women's vote turned out the way it did in 2016. We obviously hope that things are very, very different in 2020, and so much is being done to focus on that. But I would say, you know, and this is not to avoid the question, my hope is that women and men both realize the importance of supporting women in leadership in general.
Well, thank you so much, Stacy. I'm just posting again. The amazing operator has posted all the links, but I'm actually going to repost the Women Count slate, because I'm going to ask the people who are on this call and anyone that's listening to this afterwards to please click on the link in the chat box. It is the Women Count slate that Stacy has created for Manny's, and I'm so thankful. Please give to the women who are running for Senate, and also please do support my small business, Manny's. We've had to shut down our operations for the most part because of all of this, and so we need your help. We need your support. I'd be really appreciative if you'd be willing to donate to Manny's and help us through this time. Stacy, you're such an amazing advocate, and I'm so honored to know you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing and you continue to do in this time of shelter in place. If you guys liked this conversation, you can tag us at Welcome to Manny's. Thank you to our operator, Sam, and our team, Jupiter and Ram. And Stacy, you get the last word.
Oh, Manny, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. I think what you've created and what you've built is remarkable. And I want you to know that as soon as everything reopens, we will be right there indoors to help you and bring more candidates to your space, more women candidates.
I am going to make a public commitment now to reach out to all of the 11 or 12 candidacies that you've mentioned to offer up my space to host physical fundraisers for them once we can again.
Great. I look forward to helping you do that.
Yes. Bye, Stacy. Thanks so much.
Bye.